Us today is SadhGuru Ji, who needs no introduction, but I will tell you what he does. He's an Indian yoga guru. He's a spiritual leader, author, international speaker, Padma Vibhushan, also a climate warrior. SadhGuru Ji, welcome to the Earth Culture.
Namaskaram. Thank you.
And of course, the force behind the Isha Foundation. How can I forget that? How do you describe yourself? Because people see you in different roles and different avatars with different things that you've taken up. If I were to ask you to give an introduction of yourself to our audience today, what would you say?
I would say that's a waste of time. I don't spend time describing myself as this or that. It's just that, well, people have been calling me many things. Somebody calls you a yogi, somebody calls you a mystic, somebody calls you… These days they've started calling me a biker, an aviator, a painter, these kind of things. See, the problem is human beings are always trying to find some kind of identity with the simple things that they do in their life. So, if you eat your lunch today, you're a eater. What is this? This is not necessary. So, identities are for people who are constantly looking for some sense of security, some kind of stability. This is happening because people's experience of life is limited to their physiological process and psychological process. And both these processes are ongoing processes, they are not, they're not absolutes. Our body is not absolute, nor are the state of our mind is absolute. When you are rooted in something which has no stability, which is always changing, people are trying to pin themselves to some identity and find some kind of semblance of absoluteness about their life. This is how religious identities are born, this is how nationalities are born, this is how every little thing that you give to people, just the color of the skin, you identify with that. Everybody there is a term like skin deep means it is supposed to be surface. Well, this is skin deep life, literally, because you're trying to find something absolute in a very malleable happening process. It is like saying, I like this day, the 14th of February, so let me pin it down and hold it. There is no such thing. You can't hold a moment, nor can you hold the process of body nor mind, it's on. So this is the whole purpose of spiritual process, that you can live here without any sense of identity, that you can live here without any description or definition of who you are. When you say there is a definition, when you say there is a description, obviously there is a definition. When you say there is a definition, this means you are fixed, you have become a concrete block. The significance of being human is that we are a being. See, we do not refer to any other creature on this planet as a being. We do not say a tiger being, an ant being, an elephant being, there's no such thing. Only a human is being because this one life is supposed to know how to be. Unfortunately, in today's world, how far away from that are we? Because people do not know how to be, they are trying to fix their identity, that I'm this or that. If I ride a motorcycle, people say, oh, you're a biker. If I golf, they say you're a golfer. I have an aviation license, people say, oh, you're an aviator. This is not the way to look at life. You can do whatever is needed around you, but that need not describe your identity. Should you have an identity? No, if you want to become a definition, if you want to become a fixed entity, you need an identity. Otherwise, life is just an exuberant happening, it is on for now and it's not permanent, it'll be gone. So how exuberantly you, blossom up, that's all there is to life. There is no need to fix all those people who are fixing identities. I think they must consult the dead people. They will tell you all these things are a waste. So will you get it now or will you get it after you're gone? That is the only difference. So, I don't waste my time defining myself in any particular way because I'm not defined or structured in myself. These days, people are asking me, Sadhguru, how did you become an environmentalist? Where did you study? So I say, I'm a worm. I'm like a worm crawling on this earth. So everything… worm knows more about the soil and environment than anybody else because he's got such a thin skin and he can feel everything. You don't have to give him a PhD in environmentalism. So I'm just a worm and I think I have a thin skin, I feel everything around me very actively. So in that sense, I've been here, for over 6.5 decades. So because I'm alive and I know what is life. People think there is a book on life. There is no book on life, this is life. And if you are life, if you're not identified with anything, you can only be life. If you are life, everything that's worth knowing about life, you will naturally know. Because you become something else by your own definitions, you deny yourself life. So that's one thing I don't deny myself, I'm full on. Just a piece of
This is
life.
the most spectacular. I've interviewed so many people over the past 2 decades, and I've never got an introduction like that. And I think that's what sets you
I'm
apart.
sorry if I say if I'm like that.
No, this was awesome. This identity is something that has shaped our politics. If I'm not wrong, I think the French, Jean-Jacques Rousseau once said that civilization is just a building of fences, and we define ourselves in certain ways, and we build fences around it. So very interesting. You've also helmed the famous Rally for Rivers. Now you're launching the Safe Soil movement, and while climate change has become a major talking point, it's the footnote on every international conference now. Every leader wants to espouse this cause, but we don't see any mention of soil, especially in the headlines. So why did you take up this particular aspect of climate change, and what do you propose to do in the Safe Soil movement?
First of all, why is soil not being mentioned? I spoke to a few environment ministers of different nations after they came back from Glasgow. Because COP26, we were all supposed to be there, but because of these COVID restrictions, except for the government representatives, all others were cut out. That is fine, but when I inquired with them what happened in the COP26, they said we were there for a whole week. We did not hear the word soil. When nearly 40% of global warming and climate change is because of the way we are treating soil, how come we don't even mention soil in a international assembly of people where climate change is the core of what we are doing? So unfortunately, it's become like this because it's all about activism. And I mean, just now while you were introducing, you also said I'm a climate warrior or environmental warrior. This is the whole thing. We always think we need to confront somebody to find a solution. Well, there are issues. Every one of us are causing problems in the world. Maybe some people, some industries, some businesses more than somebody else. But there is nobody here who is not consuming something. All of us are consuming something. So this whole effort of what we are highlighting as climate change and global warming, nearly 40% is because of soil. If people don't understand what I'm saying, well, if you are in India, if you stand out in the sun for, in the midday for 1 hour and then go under a tree, you will understand what is climate change. Beneath the shade of a tree, beneath the shade of leaves, it is a different climate than what is just outside a few feet outside of that. So the most important thing that needs to happen is this, that the land on the planet, 70% of the land on the planet is right now agriculture. How come nobody wants to address it? Well, one reason may be because if you hit the industry, it spills dollars. If you try to hit the farmer, maybe you will get hit by yourself. So nobody wants to touch that. It is not that we are against somebody, this must be dropped altogether. This is not against fertilizer company, this is not against pesticide, this is not against this kind of farming or that kind of farming. This is a responsibility that we hold right now as a generation of people, that we are in a cusp of time where if we do not act in the next 10 to 15 years' time, then what we will face is something that all of us will regret, because right now the loss of biodiversity is happening at such a pace. On an average, most of the scientists say that we are losing about 27,000 species of microbes or microbial life in the soil per year. So in about 30 to 40 years' time, we will reach a place where if we want to revive this soil or regenerate this soil, it would take 150 to 200 years. But right now, if we start in 15 to 20 years' time, we can significantly turn this around. So as a generation, we are at a time, we are on a threshold that we can either turn it back or let it go bad. Let it go bad means what? Every responsible scientist in the world is pointing out that by 2045, we will be producing 40% less food and our populations will be 9.2 or 9.3 billion people. That is not a world in which you or me want to live in. Definitely it's not a place where we want to leave our children and go. This is a horrible place where 40% less food means civilization will break down. Whatever 1,000 years of civilization will break down in 3 days the moment there is genuine food shortages on the ground. And like FAO and the Food and Agriculture Organization and also World Food Program, all of them are predicting that by 2040 there could be dozens of civil wars across the world because of food shortages. And this year, WFP is asking for more budget. Last year they distributed $9 billion worth of food in the Africa itself, and this year they want 15 billion because they're expecting more famines. So it is not even in future, it is already happening, it's at our doorstep. Right now our stores may have a lot of food, but that can go empty in no time. That can happen very, very quickly, advancing numbers of population and depletion of soil. Depletion of soil means to what extent it is happening. For example, in India, 62% of India's soil is considered degenerated. Its organic content is below 0.5%, 0.05%. So this is on the verge of desertification. In most of Europe has less than 2% organic content. Southern Europe has around 1.2%. United States has less than 1.5% largely. 50% of America's soil is gone already. So this is not a joke, this is a suicide we are committing. And we want to ignore that and talk about oil industry, automobiles. Yes, all of them are important, very significantly important. I am not saying they are not important. But this is a concern of fundamental life, because who we are today is a consequence of the microorganisms in the topsoil. Not only who we are as today, but even in the evolutionary scale of things, we are actually a consequence of the microbial activity. And even today our gut microbe, without which we cannot digest the food that we eat, is reflecting just what is there in the soil. The soil microbes are doing similar activity of exchanging food with the plant life, and gut microbe is doing that with us, and it is an evolutionary connections are there that this and that are not different. Well, will we get it now that we are… the body that we carry and the soil that we walk upon are not two different things. Whether we get it now or we'll get it when they bury us, this is the only choice we have. So regenerating soil is not a very big money-consuming war-like situation, it's a simple process. Every farmer knows without the richness of soil, there is no rich crop. The nutritional values have dropped significantly. They are saying in 1920, in United States the studies have happened well, in other places there's no studies. The studies clearly show in 1920s what a leafy vegetable had. Today, only 10% of the nourishment is there. In 1920, if you ate one orange, what you were getting from that, today you will have to eat 8 oranges. Did you ever have 8 oranges for a breakfast? Is it even possible? So this is where we have taken it, this is what we have done to the food. Right now we are talking about the pandemic. See, a simple medical doctor need not be an expert on anything, just a basic medical doctor knows that vitamin A, D, C, B6, B12, iron, zinc, vitamin E, these things are very essential to be resistant to respiratory infections. Otherwise, if these things are low, every day we will have a respiratory infection. A pandemic need not come. So, today these micronutrients are super low in the food that we are eating. This is one reason why the pandemic is having such a free flow all across the world. Particularly in United States, you see this. The wealthiest country on the planet is suffering most, nearly hitting 1 million deaths probably by next month, it'll be 1 million, very close. India with nearly 4 times population, we're at 500,000, but they're at 1 million simply because of nutrient deficiency, which is significant because 90% of the American population is deficient in vitamin E and 43% is deficient in vitamin A, 40% in vitamin C. And like this you can go on with data, but it is everybody's understanding clearly that we are beginning to think That soil and planet itself is a commodity that we can use and throw. There is no use and throw. What we call as soil is the only magical thing in the universe, not on the planet, where if you put death into it, it sprouts life. This is the only place. Tell me any other place that we know of where you can throw death and it bursts out with life. This is the only place, this is where it is, the life is. If we don't nurture this, there is a problem. How am I getting into this? Will people support it? Well, I've been preparing for this over 2 years. You mentioned Rally for Rivers. That movement has changed the policy, which has become the recommendation policy for all the 28 states in India. But only 6 states are proactively doing something, others are going little slow. So this has been the human trend that if we have to act, a disaster has to strike us. So people are waiting for disasters. Please do not wait for disasters, because when the disaster strikes somebody else, it's just news. When it strikes you, it is the worst possible thing that can happen to you. It is estimated by 2030, nearly 1 billion people will be migrating in this world. Why are people leaving their homelands and going somewhere? Essentially, no richness in soil. In India, as you know, over 300,000 people have committed suicide in the last 20 years, the farmers. Why would a farmer commit suicide? If the soil was rich and it can produce food at least for himself and his family, would he commit suicide? It doesn't matter what is the bank loan, it doesn't matter what is the financial situation. If there was food to eat, he would not commit suicide, and if the soil was rich, there would always be food to eat. Because this is not today's phenomena. For millennia we have done farming and we had kept it. But in the last 40–50 years, we've dropped all our sense of treating soil as a living soil and started treating it as a bunch of chemicals for which we are paying the price. It can be very easily reversed. One simple thing is just this: on this planet, whether you are a human being or an animal or a bird or a worm, the most fundamental activity is photosynthesis. It is because of photosynthesis that atmosphere today has about 21% oxygen. This is why we're breathing and alive. Before photosynthesis started, atmosphere had just over 1% oxygen. No way, none of us could exist. So this is possible only because of this. Now if you look at the land in the world, suppose you fly from New Delhi to southern India, look out of the airplane window every 5 minutes, you will see India is like one brown desert. Except for Western Ghats and Northeast, the whole country looks like a brown desert in the summer months. This is what needs to change. A cover crop, grasses, bushes, trees, whatever, there should be maximum amount of photosynthesis, because photosynthesis means using the perpetual energy source of the sun and transforming carbon molecules in the atmosphere into carbon sugars, pass it on into the soil and exchange it with nutrients. This is an active exchange process. The more you enhance it, the more your problems of global warming will stop. Right now, whether the land is plowed, largely land is plowed or it is paved, this is the main thing. 70% of the land on the planet is plowed. This has to stop and more leafy material has to come on it. You can get food. See, right now we are only thinking in terms of what gives us food. We are thinking that is a good thing. Anything else, we call it a weed. Only one weed is popular, unfortunately. Every other weed we want to do weedicide and destroy. But the important thing is they are doing a phenomenal amount of work of exchanging carbon and nutrients and the whole lively process that is happening beneath our feet. To bring this back, we just need a policy change. Why I'm insisting on policy change is, see, today I may maintain my land very well. Next generation, what they will do with it, you do not know. So it has to be instituted in the policy that minimum 3 to 6% organic content should be there in agricultural land. This may need little help from the governments. That is, right now, see, I have lived on farms and it was always a part of our thing that during summer, we would throw legume crops or pulses on the thing, knowing fully well we won't get much yield from it, almost no yield. It was just put there to cover the thing, and nitrogenation of the soil happened, it protected the soil. And when the rains came, we just plowed it back and planted the next crop. All we have to do is probably give them some seed on a free basis to do cover crops initially. Once they see the benefit of it, then they will do it themselves after a few years. So these are simple things, it doesn't take billions of dollars to do this, it takes commitment and focus, the right kind of focus in the right direction, because our life is rooted in the soil. We have come from there and we go back there. So will people support? There's a phenomenal support. In the last 2 years, I've been talking to various influencers, world leaders. Uh, Especially in the last 8 months, I've been meeting so many of them. I have not found one person who's spoken in negative terms. Everybody sees it must happen. But why it's not been spoken till now is a big question for you to investigate.
Right. No, this is very, very educational. I'm sure when people listen to you talk about this and when you start your movement, there will be more information doing the rounds, and we need this kind of constructive information in an age where we have a glut of information and most of it is useless or damaging. You mentioned that people are coming out in support. You also mentioned the commodification of earth, and that is one point that I want to dwell on, because we are part of what we're calling a culture fest. And if we look at Indian culture and Indian ethos, we've always treated nature as a deity. We always say Mother Earth in India. Um, but over the years, we have started looking at it as a resource, as a commodity, rather than something to be grateful to. How has the shift in our attitude impacted our relationship with nature, and how we what shall I say? We tend to exploit it rather than use it.
Uh, because you mentioned Indian culture, see, we must understand this. In this culture, this is a dangerous thing to say for me, but I will say anyway. Uh, See, this is a godless culture. There is no the God in this culture. We treated the basic elements which make our life, the earth, the water, the air, the light, and everything around us which makes life as, deities for us to worship. And different planets and satellites around us which make our life. How the earth spins is very much a part of our life. If it spins wrongly, we will be gone. So, these are the things that we looked at worshipfully, and soil definitely was an important part. Even today in southern India, if a farmer has to enter the land in the morning, first thing is he will bow down to the soil and then only step on it. He won't simply step on it, because soil was never seen as a commodity. I know even in the north you call it maa mitti or something, in south we call it thai mannu, which simply means we treat it as mother. Because soil is the mother of all mothers, because every life has come from that. So this culture is gone and we are looking at commodification. One important thing is because we exported God to heaven, this is an important thing, because we stopped seeing that what is around us is making our life and we thought something above is making our life. So once this shift happened, naturally treating everything around us as a commodity to use became normal process. So this is a very significant thing that the culture that we had in this country and still have to some extent, at least in the rural areas, is still very much there, but it is being largely being lost very rapidly. We must revive that we understand the food that we eat. We did not thank a God for giving us food. We just bow down to the food that we eat, knowing fully well, without this we will not exist. So the food that we eat, the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, the soil that we walk upon, these were the things that we always worshipped. In the yogic culture, the Panchabhutas are held as the highest things in life. The life basis is in the Panchabhutas, or the five elements of nature of earth, water, air, fire and space. These are the five elements, and this is what is always worshipped in the yogic culture. This needs to come back. Whether you worship or not is left to you, but looking at it with regard, respect, if not reverence, at least with regard and respect is very, very important. Otherwise, we think everything is coming from somewhere above. But there is no above for us, because we are sitting on a round planet and it's always spinning. Nobody knows which is up and down in this cosmos. Nowhere is it marked this side up.
Right, and before I let you go, I want to ask you this. You are a guru to many, many people, and the entire human race has collectively suffered in the past 2 years. For a world coming out of this unprecedented pandemic and beginning to appreciate, should I say, the the unpredictability of life, how fleeting it is. Uh, what should we do to make our lives more spiritually meaningful and rewarding?
See, I would not want to segregate what is spiritual and what is otherwise, because the shell of this body is something that we gathered from our birth till now. Slowly we gathered this body. Well, keeping it well and healthy is very important, otherwise it'll become a… if you don't keep it well, it'll become a full-time engagement. The idea of keeping the body well is so that you can forget about it. It's doing so well, you don't have to attend to it. If it is not doing well, this will become full-time job. So, because in the name of spirituality, people have done this. They've not taken care of their basics, and after some time, those basics will engage you full-time. The same goes for your mind also. Keeping your body and mind well is very, very important. So now, the pandemic itself, I mean, I don't want to belittle this, but I hope people listen to this carefully, because see, the previous generations have faced world wars, famines which killed millions of people. Pandemic unfortunately has taken nearly 6 million people, if I'm right. You may have the better numbers. Nearly 6 million people, I think. Well, that's unfortunate. Almost anybody that we know in our lives, friends and family, almost all of them have lost at least one person that they knew and dear to them. So, it is a hit for the humanity. But at the same time, for the rest of us who managed to stay alive, one way or the other, I think the only thing that it's demanding is a little bit of change in lifestyle. If you're too committed to your lifestyle and not to the life that you are, then there is a serious problem. Because lifestyles keep changing. Lifestyles will change not just because of economic problems and social issues, lifestyles change just because we're aging from, when you're 10, when you're 15, when you're 20, when you're 35, our lifestyles have changed. And some of us have changed seamlessly without effort, some suffer even that, okay? Because in the West, I keep hearing this, see, if you're a toddler, you have diaper problems. If you become an adolescent, you have hormonal problems. If you become middle-aged, it's a crisis. Old age is horrible. There is no time in life that people are not suffering. So I'm not trying to belittle the impact of pandemic, but the only thing it's demanding from us, for those of us who managed to stay alive, I'm very sorry for all those who have lost people who are dear to them, that's a different matter. But for all of us who stayed alive, the only thing that's demanding is change of lifestyle. I don't think we should suffer that. And change of lifestyle, as you know, in Delhi, people started seeing Himalayan mountains from Delhi. The fog cleared up or the smog cleared up, and good things have happened. They started having wild animals on the streets all over the place. So, things have happened, but this is a good time to look at it. All of us must look at it. Pandemic has done one thing. Those people who believed they're immortal and they were going around, pandemic has hung the mortal nature of who we are in our face, which is very, very important, because this is the only thing which will make you seek something beyond your physical nature, which means spiritual process. When I say spiritual, I am not talking about looking up, looking down, going to temple, church or mosque, I am not talking about that. Spiritual means somewhere being a physical entity is not enough, so you start searching for what is beyond this. Because somewhere physical aspect of who we are, we gathered over a period of time. Psychological or mental aspect of who we are gathered. So what we accumulate can be ours, but can never be us. So we start looking for what is us really, what is this that I call as myself? So this is a spiritual quest. This only happens when you realize that your time here as a physical entity is very limited. When you understand every moment is ticking away in the direction of our grave, actually, when you become conscious of this, naturally you start looking what is the basis of my existence. So spirituality is in this, in that sense, this pandemic has definitely brought that sense to people. You can't take your life for granted because people around you died. Now you are also a very mortal creature and any time it can happen to you. This was true always. Pandemic or no pandemic, it's always true. Any time it can happen to anybody. So, this is a very good thing in that sense. I'm not saying pandemic is a good thing, I'm saying if you realize, because in our lives, What life throws at us is not something that we can always determine. Life throws all kinds of balls at us, but what we make out of it is 100% ours. So I would seek and also tell everybody that this is a great time if you want to realize the nature of your life, because life has thrown a googly at you. It's time for you to enhance your skills as to how to live, how to be a joyful human being. See, everybody was complaining going to work was such a painful thing. I hear some studies show in United States particularly, 70% of the people hate their jobs. Hate, not dislike, hate. 5 days in a week, if you hate something, naturally in the weekend you overdose. This is happening all over the place on large scale. No more in isolated places, large scale it's happening. So why is it? It's life is like this is because you've taken it for granted. This pandemic has brought it home to us that you are very mortal. On a daily basis, you must know that you are mortal. If you know that you are mortal, you know on a limited lease of time, you will make the best out of this life. So let's not complain about little lifestyle aberrations that have happened to all of us. Life is still on, that matters. Those who lost is unfortunate, but we are still alive. So this is something we must always appreciate, because the only and only valuable thing that you have in your life is life itself. Everything else are just accessories. You can do with them or without them. It's up to us.
Absolutely. It's been a very, very enriching conversation. I take back a lot of notes and a lot of points to ponder on and work on. Thank you very much, Sadhguruji.
Thank
Always
you,
a pleasure.
Palki. Namaskaram. Wonderful.